The stately homes of England we proudly represent. We only keep them up for Americans to rent. It's wiser not to sleep there in case they tumble down. But still if they ever catch on fire, which with any luck they might, we'll fight for the stately homes of England.
Spetchley House is an imposing Georgian mansion that lies deep in a pretty Worcestershire vale. It is renowned for its majestic grandeur, impressive stately rooms, and luxurious Victorian interiors. Like all stately homes, the house was requisitioned during the Second World War for military use, and Spetchley found itself chosen for a unique purpose. Juliet Berkeley was only 9 years old when war broke out, but remembers the great interest in her home.
Well, first of all, the house was going to be one of several houses that were put aside for Churchill and his cabinet in case there was an invasion. And they picked Spetchley because we've got particularly extended cellars. We didn't know who was coming, but we guessed they were rather important by the trouble they were taking.
Thankfully, Churchill never had to leave London, but he still ordered that the house be stripped along with its occupants.
In 1944, and the Americans requisitioned the house as a sort of respite home for pilots who had done so many raids over Europe and needed a break. I remember I used to have war maps on the fighting in Russia and in France on the wall. And so when the Americans arrived here, it was quite an event. You know, one hadn't seen Americans before.
As well as the parks, the pilots left an altogether more lasting memento of their time at Spetchley House.
Now we're in the cellars of the house. And the Americans had, some of them were craftsmen, you know, before the war, very good at joinery and carving and all those sort of things. And so they had their workshops down here where they amused themselves making figurines or whatever you will. And they left behind them, they used to write their names up on the walls. They left behind their names, Pal, Dick, Bolton, Babs, Jim, and a whole lot over there. John, Barney, Don, Ron, Ken, Steve, Ram, Kansas, Slim, Sparky, Tony, Frank. Well, it brings back memories of those days, of course. Sadly, some of them may have been killed subsequently when they went back on active service. But historically, I think this is very interesting.
Well, whatever they did with great speed. And they drove up and down the driveway in their jeeps.
We're 6 jerks in a jeep, 6 creeps in a jeep that leaps. Now here we come, beep, beep.
And it was ruination for the driveway, and we've never got it back, I'm afraid. We now use the tradesman entrance.
Entertaining was high on the list of priorities at Spetchley House, and when it came to socialising, the usual rules were allowed to be broken.
With them here were hostesses. They were young American, well, they would have been service women. A lot of them were very glamorous, I suppose. Well, I don't know what they did, really. Mopped their brow when they were overheated.
When the dizziness stopped, when the fog cleared, an army nurse was at your side.
All the things men do with pretty girls.
The Americans undoubtedly left their mark in more ways than one, and they are always remembered with great fondness. Spetchley House offered the peace and calm the pilots so desperately needed. Their existence was one of pure leisure, in extreme contrast to the life and death conditions of fraught bombing raids.
Well, one looked on them all as very brave, as heroes for what they did when they were flying.
We knew they came here. We knew that they had a pill to put them out for a certain amount of time, and then they stayed on to relax and we hope get back to normal. But there's no question that those young men did go to hell and back.